Tokyo, a city that never seems to rest. Beneath its neon lights and unending flow of workers, the rhythm of ambition beats relentlessly. And at the very top of this system stands a woman who embodies both Japan's strength and its struggle. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, when she walks onto the stage, applause fills the room, cameras flash, journalists lean forward, waiting for her words. We must all pull together across all generations and work as one to rebuild the LDP, she says firmly, her voice carrying the conviction of someone who has lived by those words. Then she adds something that would soon define her leadership. Everyone will have to work like a horse. It was a phrase that ignited both admiration and alarm. Admiration, because Japan's culture deeply values diligence and sacrifice. Alarm, because Japan has been fighting a long battle with the consequences of overwork, exhaustion, burnout, and even death. Sanae Takaichi's rise to power is historic. She is Japan's first female prime minister, a conservative stalwart who spent decades in the male-dominated corridors of the Liberal Democratic Party. To her supporters, she represents resilience and reform, proof that women can lead even in Japan's most traditional political landscape. To her critics, she represents the persistence of an old, unforgiving work ethic that the nation has tried and often failed to change. Her words were not just rhetoric, they were lived truth. During a recent parliamentary session, Takaichi admitted that she sleeps only 2 to 4 hours a night. She said it almost casually, a fact, not a complaint. But to many Japanese citizens, it was more than an admission. It was a symbol of a system that demands too much from those at the top and, by extension, from everyone else below. Her confession came after controversy erupted earlier that week. The Prime Minister had reportedly called her staff for a meeting at 3 in the morning, demanding immediate preparation for a parliamentary debate scheduled later that day. For many, it was déjà vu, a reminder of the country's culture of endless work, of lights glowing in office towers long past midnight, of trains that carry the weary home as dawn breaks. Japan's work culture has long been admired for its productivity, but it has also been feared for its toll. The term karoshi, death by overwork, entered the dictionary decades ago. It is not just a word, it is a social wound. Each year, hundreds of lives are claimed by strokes, heart attacks, or suicides linked to extreme working hours. Behind every statistic is a story: an exhausted father who never returned home, a mother who collapsed at her desk, a young graduate who simply couldn't bear the pressure any longer. Against this backdrop, Takaichi's revelation stirred a national conversation. How could the leader of a country that has pledged to reduce working hours embody the very habit it seeks to reform? Was she an example of commitment or a reflection of Japan's inability to change? In the Japanese Diet, opposition lawmakers pressed her on this contradiction. One legislator asked whether the Prime Minister's own schedule was setting a dangerous example for the public. Takaichi, calm and composed, admitted that her sleep routine was not good for her skin, a rare moment of levity that drew laughter in the chamber. Yet beneath the humour lay a serious question. What does leadership mean in a country where rest is often seen as weakness? Outside the parliament, on the streets of Tokyo, life moves in patterns of precision. In Shibuya, one of the world's busiest crossings, thousands of people move as if choreographed by an invisible hand. Each step a symbol of discipline, each face reflecting fatigue or determination, sometimes both. The nation's pulse beats strongest in its working hours and quietest in its rare moments of rest. Takaichi's defenders say her work ethic is the very reason she succeeded in a system designed to resist her. Her journey was not easy. As a conservative woman in Japanese politics, she faced scrutiny from both allies and opponents. Her toughness, they argue, is not posturing, it's survival. To her supporters, her late-night meetings and sleepless nights are not excesses, but evidence of devotion. But the criticism remains. Labour rights groups warn that Japan cannot move forward by clinging to old habits. They point to reforms introduced by previous governments, caps on overtime campaigns, encouraging employees to take vacations, even public appeals to leave the office before sunset. Yet, despite these efforts, the cultural roots of overwork run deep. Managers still praise those who stay late. Employees still fear being the first to leave. Change in Japan comes quietly, slowly, and often painfully. Sanae Takaichi's government is now considering a new proposal, a potential increase in the maximum overtime limit, justified as a measure to boost economic growth. The idea has drawn outrage from unions and civil groups who see it as a step backward. Takaichi defended the discussion, saying that workers and employers have different needs and that the government must find a balance. Her words were measured, but the reaction was not. Many saw it as a signal that Japan's relentless pace would continue. That in the race for prosperity, exhaustion remains the cost of participation. Yet it would be unfair to reduce Takaichi to a single soundbite. Her story, like Japan's, is layered with contradictions. She is the first woman to lead her nation, a breakthrough that shattered decades of political convention. She is a nationalist, but also a pragmatist who understands the value of international alliances. During her early weeks in office, she reaffirmed Japan's security commitment to the United States, describing the Japan-EU alliance as the cornerstone of her foreign policy. She pledged to build a relationship of trust with President Trump during his upcoming visit, promising to elevate ties to new heights. Her foreign policy stance reflects confidence, but her domestic challenge may be far more complex. The Japanese economy, though stable, faces demographic decline, stagnant wages, and a labour shortage that threatens its future. The workforce is ageing rapidly, and younger generations are increasingly disillusioned by the demands of corporate life. Many are rejecting traditional employment altogether, choosing freelance work, shorter hours, or even early retirement over the rigid hierarchies of the past. In this climate, Takaichi's comments struck a nerve. To some, she was simply being honest, reflecting the harsh realities of leadership in a demanding political system. To others, she was reinforcing the very cycle that Japan needs to escape. Can a country truly reform its work culture if its leader glorifies sleeplessness? The symbolism is powerful. When a prime minister says she survives on 2 to 4 hours of sleep, it sends a message, one that trickles down from the top office to every desk, every factory, every worker who feels they too must sacrifice rest for duty. It feeds into an ethos that has built Japan's economic miracle, but also drained its people of time, health, and often joy. As Takaichi left the parliamentary chamber that day, reporters shouted questions about whether she would commit to labour reform. She smiled politely, offered no direct response, and moved on. The debate, however, continued across television panels, social media threads, and dinner tables across Japan. Meanwhile, the streets of Tokyo remain as restless as their leader. Commuters flood the subway stations, faces lit by phone, screens and fluorescent lights. In Shibuya, the pedestrian scramble repeats every few minutes, a hypnotic symbol of constant motion. The city is alive, efficient, dazzling, and weary. For generations, Japanese society has tied personal worth to endurance. To endure is to succeed. To rest is to risk being left behind. It is a belief that built skyscrapers and bullet trains, that powered factories and filled classrooms, but it is also a belief that has cost lives. As a new generation rises, this mindset is being challenged. Younger Japanese are demanding flexibility, balance, and mental health support. They are less willing to accept karoshi as an inevitable part of modern life. Activists call for structural reform, shorter work weeks, better wages, and an end to glorifying exhaustion. The question is whether the government, led by a woman who barely sleeps, will listen. Takaichi's legacy is still being written. Her leadership could either reinforce Japan's work till you drop culture or redefine it for a new era. The irony is striking. The first female prime minister, a symbol of progress, may also be the face of one of Japan's oldest challenges. And so The image of Sanae Takaichi walking across the stage, bowing to her predecessor, hands raised in unity, carries more meaning than it seems. It is the image of a leader determined to work without rest and of a nation still asking whether rest itself is a luxury it can afford. Tokyo's skyline glows. Against the night, office windows stay lit long after sunset. Somewhere in the Prime Minister's residence, another light burns to the desk of Sanae Takaichi, perhaps reviewing tomorrow's agenda, preparing for another 3 a.m. meeting, another sleepless night. Japan's story has always been one of perseverance. The question now is whether it can also become a story of balance. Until that happens, the hum of Tokyo will continue a city and a prime minister both wide awake.